these were all very exciting results and very promising results that are coming. And I think we are also excited about the next steps in the field. And it would be very nice to hear shortly from our speakers, what do they think? What is the next steps to be done in the digital assessments field? Maybe starting with Ralph.
Yeah, I cannot start my video so far. It's stopped. Now it comes. All right. Well, yeah. You know what? I'm actually impressed by what I heard today from all the different sides. And for me, having spent quite a few years, as you've seen, in working on digital measures, it's wonderful to see that we have this session. And I think it's a big progress already that the need for digital measures and the possibilities are recognized, and there is a stage for this. I think these measures deserve it, and the projects are well designed. The European Union, for instance, has obviously recognized that there are needs and there is potential for this, and particularly in Huntington's disease, I think with the CAG repeat and the opportunity to move in very early, as I think we all dream about. I think these devices that we're talking about now for the multiple domains, that hopefully we will have devices available in the future, not just for motor, for whatever it's going to be. And we discussed this today, even with the opportunity to look at the patient's homes, which usually we cannot do in the clinic. I think we have a potential here that shouldn't be underestimated. And I think there is a huge need for these projects. It's great to see that we learn more about it and that this data is going to be shared. And I think if we revisit this topic in 1 or 2 years, we will probably have advanced quite a bit already. However, I also want to say, and I appreciate that everyone here, I think, made a statement around it. We don't want to just gather data. I think we need to be precise, and the hypotheses we want to answer. And we also should look at privacy for the patients, and you know, only do data collection, particularly, let's say in phase 3 and big trials, if we have carefully looked at the devices, if we know they work, if we tested them in the Huntington community, because the Huntington community has other needs than some of the other indications that even we look in IDEA fast. So I want to stop here, and that would be my summary comment at this point.
Thank you, great. Philippa?
Well, I think Ralph has said it all, really. For me, the main focuses and the next steps needs to be ensuring that we have a comprehensive validation of the technologies. There's an awful lot of technologies out there and they're advancing all the time, but in the most part, they're designed for non-clinical applications. So the algorithms behind them don't necessarily work when you apply them to a clinical cohort. So I think it's really important for us to make sure that we understand how those technologies actually work, that we can validate them in our cohorts to make sure that the data that we're collecting is actually suitable and appropriate and meaningful to our cohort and our research.
Thank you. That's really important. And maybe Pearl, your opinion? Hi.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I agree with Rolf and Philippa on this. And I think especially in HD, we see potential for digital technologies to be very important. And I think also in the light of the current COVID pandemic. And I think for us, an important step for the future is to see for our platform that we are developing is how we can keep it up to date. I think some questions were also about that, how we can keep it up to date, because there's a lot of research done. So we have to make sure that that's incorporated, but also how we maybe can collaborate with others in the future. For instance, with the wearables and digital assessment tools, it would be great if we can extend the platform and add some of the devices so that it's all an integrated thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pearl. So I'm going to continue to ask some specific questions to our panel, and the first question I've got is actually for Rolf. You mentioned the PD task force for digital assessments and monitoring, and that's incredibly encouraging that that's been set up. Can you tell us a little bit about how the work done by this task force can really inform the unique needs of the HD community? As you've mentioned, that we can't just assume that things can be transferred. Could you talk about an HD task force?
It's actually not a Parkinson's disease task force. It's a movement disorder task force in general, but one has to appreciate that in the movement disorder society, Parkinson's disease is the most frequent disease, and for a number of reasons, because devices have been used in Parkinson's disease maybe for a little longer even than in HD. The first focus was on Parkinson's disease. I think that's actually okay, because we can learn from that field. Indeed, we need to make sure that if we think about use in clinical trials for endpoint research and stuff like that, we have to look at disease-specific modalities. That was a big challenge in an idea fast. But I think, what the Movement Disorder Society, I think, appreciates is that there is a need beyond Parkinson's disease for all movement disorders. And what we've seen, for instance, was the Q-motor is obviously that we can use. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? If you can measure these motor phenotypes that you see as a neurologist and the multiplicity of diseases like spinocerebellar ataxias, ALS, even in dementias, you can measure such phenotypes objectively. So I think what the Movement Disorder Task Force now explores for Parkinson's disease in many of the domains can probably be transferred to Huntington's disease. There are also issues like legal issues. How can you actually manage data properly with the current standards that are needed? There's a lot of effort that is put into that. What security, reliability of data? How do we want to assess that in the future? I think that has been a topic here already. Do we want to bring up standards that are established that do not come from the producers of these devices, or not even from pharmaceutical companies, but from our professional, hopefully more independent organizations where experts from different institutions and also companies can feed in, but it's not determined by these companies, but by the academic and by the research-driven, evidence-based assessment. So I think these groups are important. They should be independent of any sponsor, any foundations, any whoever it is. It should be a group selected by expertise and knowledge. And I think that's helpful, and it will probably help us to develop standards in HD as well.
Okay, thank you, Rolf. So I've got a question for Philippa now. Are we ready for? Are we at the point of starting to define core outcome sets for digital tools or digital markers?
I guess that would depend on which application. So specifically in Huntington's, I don't think we are quite there. I think there's research ongoing which would enable us to be in that position. At the moment, I think the work is ongoing. The main thing is to fully understand that the metrics are meaningful. And once we know that the metrics are meaningful, then we can link it to disease progression and actually develop the outcome measures based on the digital technologies. But without understanding whether those measures are meaningful, then it's quite a difficult task to do.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one question for Pearl, which this is actually a question that was posted on the conference site, which is from Mette Gilling-Nielsen, and she asks about the platform and how you will keep the information up to date and whether users will be able to input over time.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's important that it's not going to be a fixed knowledge platform, but that we will keep it up to date, of course. So it would be great if we can collaborate in a way with Huntington's associations in each country for which we are going to develop the platform, as they are like in the field and have all the up-to-date knowledge. So we are currently looking for ways and how we can collaborate with them. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have run over. There was one more question for Ralph about quantitative measurement of sleep in HD. And whether this is a question from Jordan Schultz, and whether these measures would be acceptable for tracking disease progression or for
yeah, I mean, I have to say that I've thought about this myself quite a bit. So honestly, I would probably be quite frank with this and say, I think we have a lot of literature already about sleep disturbances in Huntington's disease, and maybe fatigue in sleep has been under-recognized actually for a long period of time, and there could well be an opportunity to learn with such projects using more sensitive devices and quantitative data that such endpoints might be useful for Huntington's disease. But I do agree that certainly at this point in time, I would say motor measurements for proof of concept of therapies are much more established and likely to work in HD. Keep in mind that the consortium, as I outlined earlier, as I alluded to, has the focus of actually kind of paving the road for regulatory approval of devices. It is actually not so much the point what we look at, because we had to go across the different diseases, including internal medicine, and motor was just not applicable for those diseases. So we agreed in the consortium to go for sleep and fatigue because it was feasible across the diseases, the disease domains. It may not be the best measure for Huntington's disease in the end. Still nice to explore, but I don't expect actually that we will use sleep as an endpoint in a disease modifying trial in 3 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rob. So aware of the time, this has been a fascinating session. I've really enjoyed listening to all the talks. I think digital assessments, digital interventions are the way of the future. And I am aware that there may be more interest in the HD field, and perhaps those who are interested may want to think about contacting the EHDN think tank. Maybe this is something that we can see having a real HD focus in the future. So thank you to all of you for taking the time to
Thank you for the opportunity. There's also a motor working group, by the way, so you can always reach out to us as well.
So thank you all. That was a wonderful session, and thank you for those comments, Monica. So we have a break now. The other session has overrun a little too, so we will restart at 4:20 Central European time. We'll restart very promptly, so you have a 15-minute break now. You will need to click onto that session to get into it, just as a reminder. Thank you and enjoy your break.